So Gallup did a poll that showed Americans are pessimistic for this upcoming 2023 year, more pessimistic than they were last year, 2022. Let's get into it. This is a Russia Today article. Americans reveal key concerns for 2023 poll. Large majorities foresee economic hardship and political division at home, coupled with a decline in global U.S. power. Thankfully, there's a decline in global U.S. power. That's a good thing. That means less violence and bloodshed on the account of America. Americans are overwhelmingly pessimistic about their country's fortunes in 2023, with 80% predicting economic hardship, 80%, 80, and 90% expecting increased political conflict, a Gallup poll has found. That's about right. 80% is high, and I'd expect it to be that high, given that a lot of people, a lot of economic analysts, economists, and financial advisors have talked about how there's a looming recession coming up, possibly 2023 this year. And the high 90% political conflict, we're seeing that now with Republicans, and the Kevin McCarthy debacle in Congress. So that's not surprising. That's not a surprising statistic either. Respondents also see both Russia and the U.S. weakening amid the conflict in Ukraine. Published on Tuesday, the survey found that 81% of Americans expect their taxes to increase rather than fall this year. So 81% of Americans are expecting their taxes to increase. 79% expect a year of economic difficulty, absolutely reasonable to expect that. And 65% expect prices to keep increasing at a high rate, 65%. And so we're seeing a lot of pessimism in these numbers. A lot of Americans, their politicians have abandoned them and disregarded their concerns. These American politicians don't address a lot of the anxieties that your average American, especially the impoverished American, feels. Well, I did a video about homelessness and how they're, making laws criminalizing homelessness and, forcing people to pay fines and or serve jail time, 15-day jail time or a $750 fine as a result of sleeping on public land. And it speaks to how Americans, their politicians disregard them and their concerns and their anxieties, and how U.S. Politics and Congress is broken. It's not responding to Americans' weak points. It's not responding to Americans' concerns. Some 72% expect crime rates to rise. That's irrational. I mean, given I've seen statistics that showed since 1990, crime rates have declined. That one is an irrational fear. And I would say it's irrational mainly because the mainstream media is poison, it's propaganda, and it's been scaring these people, talking about Walgreens. People are, shoplifting from Walgreens, and you're seeing a lot of these local media outlets and national media outlets continuing to show that in a news cycle, a 24-hour news cycle. And so that's where they get that concern from. But that's an irrational fear. While 90% say that 2023 will bring more political conflict than political cooperation. Absolutely, you're not going to have political cooperation, especially with these far-right extremist conservatives and these centrist Democrats. Unfortunately, you have two political parties. This is for people outside of the United States who don't understand what America's politics are like. You have two political parties. One, the Republicans, the second, the Democrats. The Republicans are a far right political party, and the Democrats are a far right political party. So you have two political parties that run to the right, and one runs far more to the right than the other. But the Democrats, there isn't a leftist, there isn't a progressive, an effective progressive wing of the Democratic Party or of a political U.S. politics in general. Unfortunately, it's just run to the right, and the media also enjoins in providing narratives that run to the right as well. So you have the media joining along with U.S. politicians to fulfill this narrative of a far right America. So no, there's not going to be political cooperation. You don't have it now with the McCarthy debacle. These trends have already been established. In 2022, the year saw inflation rise to a 40-year high when the Biden administration adding trillions of dollars in new spending regardless. Biden closed out the year by signing a $1.7 trillion spending bill. Nearly half of that, it was a little over 50%, was on war spending. So it was about, I think, 800 million or something like that on war spending, ladies and gentlemen, of the $1.7 trillion spending bill. America loves its military-industrial complex. America loves its war. Right now, the U.S. has so many military bases around the world. It's sickening. All of those military bases need to be closed. Biden closed out the year by signing a $1.7 trillion spending bill, which, although heavily criticized by Republicans, except the war part they loved. The war spending they loved. Heavily criticized by Republicans, passed Congress with the support of a handful of top GOP lawmakers. While crime rates have not risen nationally, like I said earlier, they haven't risen nationally. In fact, they've declined. It's just the media, the propaganda, poisonous media, has been pumping out, propaganda to scare the masses and in order to get them to tune in. Violent offenses rose dramatically in some cities in the aftermath of the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. That I would disagree with Russia Today on. I wouldn't blame that on the Black Lives Matter protests. I mean, look at that economic outlook. Anytime the economy is down, you're going to have more people committing crimes out of desperation. And just like this article says, this is in some cities, some select cities. This isn't a widespread national phenomenon. The American policy establishment spent the year heavily focused on Ukraine, with Washington sending progressively heavier shipments of arms to Kiev and allocating more than $100 billion in economic and military aid to the country since the start of Russia's military operation last February. That's also something that I oppose. When it comes to Ukraine and Russia, it's unfortunate what happened with Russia invading Ukraine. That said, we're spending over $100 billion. I think it was 30 or 40 billion in that $1.7 trillion spending bill. In just 1 year, we're sending 30 to 40 billion dollars to Ukraine for war. When we can't even provide for people who are homeless, people living on the streets, people who are impoverished, people who are living paycheck to paycheck. We can't provide that. We can't provide for them here in the United States, and that to me is mind-boggling. Only 14% of respondents predict a more peaceful year ahead, with 85% anticipating a, quote, more troubled year with much international discord. I would agree with that. 85% anticipating a more troubled year with international discord. That would be likely due to the U.S. and its allies, because the U.S. and its allies, like UK, like France, like Israel, these are the ones who are anti-peace. They're antithetical to peace, and they've shown that time and time again. And so I would agree with this sentiment that it's going to be a more troubled year with international discord, largely due to them, to the United States and its allies, who are causing the trouble, who are making the trouble, and are antithetical to peace. 64% said that 2023 will be a year in which, quote, American power will decline. That's in the world. That's a very interesting statistic. 64% said 2023 will be a year in which American power will decline. I'm very interested in what people in the comments say about that, who are listening to this on YouTube. Or, tweet me if you are listening to the podcast version. With an equal number predicting a decline in Russian power, with the U.S. and Russia locked into the Ukrainian conflict, 73% said they expect China will increase its power in the world. 73% said China will increase, while 64% said American power will decline. With the party entering 2023 in control of the White House and one of the two houses of Congress, Democrats are more optimistic about the year ahead than Republicans. More than a third expect economic prosperity compared to 4% of Republicans, while 47% expect crime rates to subside compared to 6% of Republicans. So more Democrats are optimistic about the year, including economic prosperity, than Republicans. I do not consider myself a Republican, but I agree with the Republicans here that economic prosperity is going to be not this year. But what do you guys think? If you are listening to this on YouTube, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way and it's free. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then tweet me. Let me know what you guys think about this. There were a lot of interesting statistics in that article, and yeah, take care.